Good day, class. Today we're going to be going over Unit 3, SAS 5, histograms. Now, histogram is probably the first time you ever heard this word, and you're probably looking at the graph in front of you and you're like, you know what, that seems kind of similar. That seems like something I've done before. Now, a lot of people relate this to bar graphs, but I'll show you a bar graph and then I'll show you a histogram, and then you're going to be able to tell some differences. Now, histograms were created by this person named Carl Pearson, and he created these just to assess probability distribution, because as you can see, this histogram is not unique, but what it does is it measures how something shows up, how often, and I'll go more in explanation of what I'm talking about. It's more about a variable and how frequently that variable shows up within a certain range of values. But let me go ahead and kind of show you what you're normally used to seeing when it comes to these type of graphs. Most of your mathematical experience, you've been used to seeing these type of bar graphs, and where somebody's asked a question and then results are tabulated in a bar shaped form. This is different from a histogram, because a histogram is more of something continuous, and you'll see what I'm talking about in this next, when I show you this histogram in this next slide. Now, here's a picture of a histogram, and as you can see, it's slightly different from a bar graph. There's actually a couple of major important differences of why histograms are very distinct from a bar graph, especially in its representation of data. And since this whole unit's so far about collecting data and analyzing data, this becomes an important feature in it's proven in statisticians to help in realizing certain types of information when it comes to statistics. Now, let's go ahead and actually get into a detailed definition of what a histogram does and what it's composed of. Let's go ahead and go over the formal definition of what is a histogram. And a histogram is a graphical representation of distribution of data. It's an estimate of probability distribution of a continuous variable. Now, that's important to know, continuous variable, because what's one of the biggest things that makes a bar graph different from a histogram. A histogram is a representation of tabulated frequencies, and what a frequency is that how often a certain number shows up. Like in this case, you all see the ages that are up there. It's saying how many times in a certain group that age showed up. So let me give you an example. Age group 20 to 30, 2 people were in that group, were in that age group. That's the reason it shows a frequency of 2. And it says they're adjacent rectangles erected over discrete intervals, or also known as bins, and it says the area of the frequency is the area of the interval. The biggest thing you want to keep in mind is that the 20 to 30, that could be modified. That's called a bin. So there's a couple of things that in the vocab will be listed as far as what is how to read a histogram table, and mostly has to do with the idea of what is the bin size. So like in this bin, the bin size of each of these is about a separation of 10 years, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50. And then frequency is how often something shows up. So those are the 2 important things to keep in mind when you're dealing with histogram tables. Now let me go ahead and show you another histogram. Well, actually the histogram from before, but now I have a couple of questions I want to ask you. And question 1 is, how are bar graphs and histograms different? Question 2, what is the difference between quantitative and categorical responses? Question 3, what do you think the words univariate and bivariate mean? Question 4, what are some of the options when dealing with outliners and data? What I'll do is I'll go ahead and pause the video, and I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about your answers to these questions, and I'll call somebody randomly to share that with the class.